Don't fret, just strum your way to Spotify, Apple Music, or any streaming service. Or grab a CD at SusieNash.com. So tune in and turn it up. It's time for Susie Nash.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jupiter, and Indiantown, Martin County's Heritage Station.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Oh my goodness, Susie Nash. She is so much fun. She was in the studio a couple weeks ago, and the music that she sings is so heartfelt and so touching. And you can catch her Fridays and Saturdays at Archie's in Fort Pierce from 5 to 8, Sunday from 2 to 5. Y'all know Archie's. It's Archie Seabreeze, 401 South Ocean Drive in Fort Pierce. Fun place to go. No shoes, no shirt, no problem. And also, Michael Circus from Martin County Commission District 5 wants to remind all residents that the greatest power you have as a resident is to be involved in your local politics. Vote on August 20th for your next county commissioner. Michael Circus, focused on the future, educated on the past. Paid for by Michael Circus, campaign for County Commission District 5. In the studio right now, I have a repeat guest, but she's in a new capacity today. It's Susan Gibbs Thomas. She is running for Martin County Commission District 3. Susan Gibbs Thomas is candidate for Martin County District 3 Commission. She's a dynamic and dedicated individual with a passion for serving her community. With a strong background in leadership and an unwavering commitment to advocating for term limits, Susan has proven herself as a capable and driven leader. Currently serving as the mayor of Indiantown, Susan was the first mayor of the newly incorporated village and has continued to serve on the village council with integrity and determination since 2018. Her platform focuses on serving the community by advocating for term limits of 2 terms, recognizing the importance of ensuring crucial projects are completed within a reasonable amount of time. A firm believer in collaboration and unity, Susan understands that inevitable growth in Martin County must align with the collective vision of its residents for the future. She is determined to retain the heritage of Martin County by working closely with all county departments to improve infrastructure, enhance and preserve parks for recreational activities, and support a sound fiscal budget that benefits all residents. Above all, Susan is dedicated to being a people-centric representative who listens to and addresses the concerns of Martin County residents. A successful campaign relies on community involvement, and she encourages everyone to get involved in shaping their county's future. With Susan's proven leadership abilities and unwavering dedication, she's ready to take on the challenges of serving on the Martin County Commission, serving District 3. Susan, it is so wonderful to have you back in the studio today. How are things going?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I always enjoy coming and talking with you. It's interesting. It's been a very interesting experience so far.
Well, let's ask the obvious question. What made you decide to run for the county commission seat?
That's a very good question. I have the last time. I honestly, the only thing that I can say is I just feel led. I just feel led. There's something in me that just is pushing me that way, so I'm following.
So, Susan, as you know, we've had her in the studio before, but more as an Indiantown mayor and councilwoman. You were the very first mayor of Indiantown.
Yes, ma'am.
So you had a calling there as well. And I'm just going to say, personally, I follow a lot of the issues that happen within Indiantown as well as the county. Indiantown had its struggles. It's a new fledgling as municipalities go, and growing, it had its struggles. But, Susan, you were one of the steady and guiding hands through all the years since 2018, since it's been incorporated. And I think that you brought just a sense of governance that was needed through there. And I just want people in Martin County to know, as you're running for county commissioner, what you can bring to the table. You were always somebody that, I want to call you a common sense and a common person. You related to what people in the village wanted and needed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is wonderful, kind words. And in speaking like that, all I can think of, I did not set out to be that. As a matter of fact, I did not vote for incorporation. I felt like if we would put as much effort into going to the county commission and demand the services that we were lacking and for decades had been lacking in, that we did not need to incorporate and have another layer of government, another thing of taxes. But village residents and voters decided otherwise, and so I became a part of the process. And I have been privileged to be a part of that process since the beginning. And I can say the only thing, as far as the leadership, the way I look at it is my principles and what guides me is, if I'm sitting on the other side of the dais, how would I want my elected official to act? And that's what I do. That's what I do. So, and you talk about term limits and the little...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, once I get rolling, if you just need to hush me up, just let me know.
I sure will.
Because term limits, we address that, and I'm a firm believer in term limits. The reason I believe in term limits is because when you first get in, and I'm finding this, and through this process, I've become a believer in term limits because of what I have went through, and what I've experienced, and what I've seen. And when you first get into that seat, if you're lucky enough to gain the confidence of the voters, and they say, okay, go do your job, go do our job, represent us, then you've got fire under your seat, and you know that you want to affect change, and you go in questioning. You know, you use some critical thinking. Well, why do we do this? Why does it have to be done that way? Why aren't we implementing this? Why can't we do that? And it takes you your first 4 years in office to really get to know how things work. You know that, okay, why are we spending taxpayers' money on this? Well, that wasn't taxpayer money. That was a grant. So from the outside, you don't know what's behind the curtain.
Susan, I've heard that with a lot of elected officials. You come in and it's so easy to say, you can't raise taxes. Why are you spending taxes on this and not putting it there? And once you're elected, you realize you're constrained in a lot of ways of
Absolutely.
where and how money's spent.
It is
where
definitely
it comes from.
it's definitely not a business, because a business person,
Right.
man, they can get something done.
Right.
They go in, they find out the facts, and in a week or two they make a decision and off they go. Government does not work that way. Regretfully, it does not work that way. But so that second term, if you decide, okay, I enjoy doing this, I'm making some change, and you run again, okay, it's during that second term, just my personal feeling, during that second term, and it's easier as an incumbent to get elected.
Always
Good,
name
bad,
recognition.
That's it right there, good, bad, or indifferent. So term limits, there's an argument. So anyways, I'm going all over the place. My mind's just working 100 miles an hour. So that second term, that is when you become a part of the problem. That's when you start with, well, that's the way that we do it. You know, you kind of slip into, well, you've learned the system. Okay, well, that's just the way that we do it. And for a lot of people, it's a power thing too. You want to keep that up. So there we get to that name recognition, and it's easier to get elected. So for people that say every election, the people are able to term limit somebody. If they don't like them, get them out. Well, it's the name recognition. Also, the longer you stay in, the greater power base that you have. And you start, and this is just my opinion, you start governing with the next election in mind. So, okay, if we term limit, because over the weekend talked with a group, and it's, well, we need to deal with this situation. How do you see dealing with that? And my comment was, you're going to have to get somebody in office that does not want to get reelected, or is on their second term, or if you have term limits, you know, they're terming out, because it will be a career killer. Because that's the people get in there and they look at those things. Oh, can't touch that. Don't want to do that because it'll end a career.
Folks, this is. I hope you're all listening very closely to this, because term limits is something that is talked about a lot here in Martin County, and we have, you know, closed primaries to help ensure reelections. There's a lot of factors that go into our elections, and term limits can solve some of those things. Closing primaries is one of them. Another, I'm going to say this, this is just my own opinion. I think that our fire department union, the PAC, has way too much say in our elections. So these kinds of things maybe would help reel back some of the outside forces that are creating great influence in our elections. And I like the 2-term limit.
Well, and let's not only talk about outside forces, let's talk about the politicians that are sitting and would be the ones that would affect term limits. Because I brought up a discussion item, and we discussed it at our last council meeting. And everything that I'm hearing from the public, even after that meeting, I'm not going to be surprised if people do not show up outside of our council chambers with signs and in person to let the council members know what they want. Because everybody that was there, we have had a resignation, and we decided not to fill that seat. Let the people choose. The election's coming up. Let the people choose. We're within that time, 4 or 5 months, whatever it is.
It's
And
so
then we
close.
turn around. Then we turn around, and we're talking about term limiting ourselves. Put a charter amendment on the ballot to let the people choose. Let them choose whether they want somebody to have term limits or not. Our council wouldn't even put it to the people. They left it on choosing a council member. However, for term limits, no, the council knows best. And no, we're small. They can choose, every time you elect. Yeah, so it was very disturbing to me. And I think everybody that I'm talking to, they're not real happy. So
City of Stuart went through this a few years ago, and they did 3 term limits, but the people overwhelmingly supported that. And so do I have it here today, Susan Gibbs Thomas, if you are elected to Martin County Commission, that is something that you're going to push for the commission to do. You can't do it on your own. You have to have 3 of them that say, let's put it on the ballot.
I'm finding that out, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
You will be a
absolutely.
supporter.
I think that it needs to, because that's who we serve as the people. And if we're not going to listen to their voice, because we just had a situation and holding the line. Okay, we sit there and we make the laws, we make the policies. Okay,
Right.
and then we have somebody comes in. Well, I want a variance. I want an exception. Okay, and okay. Well, we'll do it for you. Well, when you hold the line, that's when you get in trouble. And when you hold the line, if you find a problem, then that's a catalyst for change. Then we need to listen to the people, and then we need to change those laws and those policies that we have. Okay,
100%.
but if we do not hold that line, we open up ourselves to, okay, so where are you going to draw that line after that? The next person comes along. So in these variances, in these, we cannot do it, and you get in trouble. And that's great, because then you get public involvement, and we have to have that. We have to hear from the public to know what is really needed, what is wanted, where we're lacking. So our last little issue that we had emails coming in. I answered absolutely every one. Because if they do not know, I know what you believe, why you believe it, and be able to defend it. And if you're not going to be able to do that while you're sitting in that seat, some people, some council members, commissioners, whatever board you sit on, just totally ignores it. It's okay. Don't need to respond. No, you cannot do that. You serve the people.
Susan Gibbs Thomas, she's running for Martin County Commission District 3. Susan, tell me a little bit. I know we had discussed as well. Just one more thing on the term limits. George Washington, founding father, first president of the United States.
Yeah.
He
self-termed
limited
at 2
himself.
terms.
Yes.
And if you look, in history, why did we get that law that term limits your president? Is because of what happened. You get somebody in there 2 terms, 3 terms. There's no, because once again, but you have to. So back in the day, FDR, and it was after that period of time that we decided as a republic, and our representatives said, we need to term limit. They didn't do it to themselves, but they did it to the president.
Right. I wish.
And see, that's
wish they'd do
just
it to
it. That's
themselves,
what
too,
I'm
but-
caught in now. You have to have a certain amount of people that go along with you. It's not just you making the decisions. It's not just me as mayor. That's kind of a ceremonial thing. It takes at least, like you said, 3.
You got to have the majority on the
Yeah.
commission that agree with you. Susan Gibbs Thomas, she is from Indiantown.
Yeah.
When's the last time somebody from Indiantown sat on the county commission?
Ooh. You know, it's interesting. I remember as a teenager going out and campaigning over in Rio, I believe it was, for Hoot Worley, Mac Worley, and that was back in the 70s.
So, folks,
He lost.
He lost. He
yeah,
lost.
Yeah, John Holt won, and he was on the commission for a couple of terms. I forget how many, but a few.
I think let's talk a little bit too about what you bring to Martin County as far as your perspective. There's some folks that say, you know, the county commission salary is around 70-some thousand, and there's some that say, well, geez, you know, that's not enough money to live on. I need to have a job outside of this. What do you say to that?
I find that interesting, and that is set by the state of Florida. It's not.
It is by population of the county.
Right, correct. And it's interesting because if you look at Martin County as a whole and the median income, and I come from Indiantown, and I've had people say, well, how do you know me in Jensen Beach? How do you know me on Jupiter Island or down in Hope Sound? You know Indiantown. Yeah, but each area is a microcosm of the whole. Because I know out in Indiantown, us being forgotten for so long, you know, I'm sure that not only happened in Indiantown, I'm sure there's instances in Palm City or Jensen Beach or Hope Sound. You know, so just because I'm from one area does not mean I understand it all. Because
And everybody's from a area, so they,
Correct.
you know.
Correct. Even the whole county votes on each district compared
Right.
to each
Right.
district voting on who they want. So that's interesting. And I'm running down rabbit trails here. So what was the original question?
It was about the salary over
the
70,000,
salary.
and some
Yeah.
people said they need another job on top of that because it's
No,
not
they
enough
don't.
money.
And I've heard that from sitting commission members. And my thought is, if you're a commission member and you cannot live on that salary and you're treating it as a part-time job, do you really know your constituents? Because if you look at the median income, and for some districts, it may be right in line. Martin County as a whole, I believe, it's above what the median income is. So how are you going to represent somebody that does not even make a half of what you make?
So take us, what's the median income in Indiantown?
It's went up. I know when we first started, it was like mid-30s, but I think it has gone up in the years. It's been 6 years that we've been at this, so it's gone up, and I want to say it's in the 40s somewhere. So that's still
Almost half. I mean, a little more than half.
Right.
So, folks, that's where, and I think, too, with Martin County, you did mention the median income, but I think it's really lopsided because there's some very, very, very wealthy that
absolutely.
can. I think
Absolutely.
a lot of your average people are going to be below that salary level of the
Right.
county commissioner. So,
Right.
I think it's an interesting perspective to say we need to look at everybody.
Yeah.
Susan, let me tell you, growth. It's a huge, huge topic right now in Martin County. So folks want to know, where do you stand on the urban service boundary line, the urban service district, and growth, and approving maybe variances for certain projects?
Okay, and that's once again go back to hold that line, because if you do not hold that line, because we create, sitting in these positions of power and governance, we create those laws, and if we are not going to abide by them and hold to them and take the flack, and there might be some heat, and that's where that catalyst to change comes in, but if we create them, then we've got to uphold them. That is our job, and if we don't like it, then we need to change it. So, growth. When I was first, because I voted no for incorporation, when I got on the council, people were coming at me and were saying, that I was a no growth person. And my attitude is, if you're not growing, you're dying. You know, you can't, you're like a stagnant pond. You know, you have to have a little bit of something. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to become a raging river, you know, but you don't want to become stagnant. And that is the top 3 things that I hear. This is the longest job interview I've ever had in my life. And the hardest thing is getting those petitions signed. We have to have 1,200 in order to get on the ballot. And it's the hardest job interview I've ever had in my life, because it'll take me 15, 20 minutes to get one petition signed because I'm talking to the person. And the 3 things that I hear are budget, growth, and term limits.
We haven't talked about budget yet, but we're touching on the other things. And speaking of that petition, if you go to Susan's website, it's https sgt4mcc.info. SGT, Susan Gibbs Thomas, 4, the number 4, MCC, Martin County Commission, MCC.info. SGT4MCC.info. You can go on her website. You can see a lot of information there. And yes, those, the petitions, you know, you got to get, it's almost 1,200 to get on the ballot. Yes. So, you know, my feeling on those is just sign them. This is let us vote. Let the voters decide who's going to be on there. Let's help these candidates get on the ballot. It's a simple thing to do, but you do need to be a resident here, and it'll ask your address.
You have to be a registered voter in order for those to count. And we have to get 1,191. So there's going to be, you're going to lose some through attrition, whether the signature wasn't right, or the address was wrong, or they're not a registered voter. So you're definitely going to get more. You have to go out and beat the bushes and get more than 1,200, yeah.
And it is a tough thing to do, but you need to do that by, it's in June. I don't know the exact date, but mid-June to qualify.
It's actually May.
They have to be May this year.
Yeah, I think they have to be turned in sometime in May.
Okay.
Yeah,
Glad you said that.
Yeah,
okay.
Before qualifying, yeah.
And also, don't forget, Michael Circus for Martin County Commission District 5 wants to remind all residents that the greatest power you have as a resident is to be involved in your local politics. Vote on August 20th for your next county commissioner. Michael Circus, focused on the future, educated on the past, paid for by Michael Circus. Campaign for County Commission District 5. You know, it's very interesting this year, Susan, because there are a lot of candidates that are out there running for different offices here in Martin County, and this is what it's about. And I appreciate you coming here into the studio today. I've had you in here before because we've talked a lot about Indiantown, so I've been able to get to know Susan a lot here over the years. And one thing I can say personally is I know you're very passionate and dedicated to your position and to your community. And I think that you'll bring a lot of passion here to Martin County. So this is exciting for me to hear your ideas beyond Indiantown. I think that's what we all want to hear. You just mentioned before I broke here to do the plug for Michael Circus about the budget. Talk about the budget, because that was really a contentious issue this year. Our budget is enormous in Martin County.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Enormous.
Yeah.
What is your take going in as a county commissioner? I mean, it just seems to keep growing and growing and growing.
Well, I think we need to go back to common sense. You talk about, common sense. Common sense is not common anymore.
No.
I think it is to our advantage, and what we need to do is look at what is government really supposed to be doing. Cut out the frills, cut out all the other stuff, and let's get back to basics. And I think it's our responsibility as a council member, as a commission member, that we are the ones that are responsible for agreeing or approving things. We need to be the ones responsible for that budget. We need to be the ones that say, okay, this is what's cut. That's what's cut. Because we agreed to it to begin with, then we need to be the ones that do it. We don't need to leave it to staff. The staff carry out policy. We are the ones responsible for it.
Speaking of staff, let me ask you what kind of commissioner you are and would be. There's a lot of votes and a lot of things to research on before every commission meeting. We have agendas, folks. They come out, a week or two before the meeting, so the public can go over them. Susan, if staff says we recommend it, do you just take that as that's your research and that's the background you're going to do for whatever the issue is? What kind of commissioner are you? Are you going to look at every issue on that agenda, or just realize staff's been doing this for 30 years, they know what they're doing, so we're going to take staff's recommendation?
Well, I think that's where it goes back to, when you're first in there, you question everything, and you kind of lose that through time. And it's, staff says it's okay. However, staff does not have the responsibility that you have sitting in that position. You go back to know what you believe, why you believe it, and be able to defend it. You have to know what you're approving. You have to look. That's my opinion. That's the reason it's a full-time job, not a part-time job. Because you know as much as staff knows. Even though they may recommend it, they may not be listening to the residents, and know what the people want. They just look at it and say, okay, this is what we think. It'd be great to have this. Well, how does it impact the budget? Where's the money going to come from? You have to look at all that, because that's one thing that we ask out in Indiantown when they're wanting a new piece of equipment. Oh, okay, is it budgeted? And where's it coming from? So
those are the important questions
absolutely.
to ask. And again, we're speaking with Susan Gibbs Thomas. She's running for Martin County Commission District 3. It's currently held by Commissioner Harold Jenkins. And I really appreciate you coming in here today. There's just so many great topics to talk about.
There is.
We only have a couple minutes, so this is a big topic that we probably can't cover, but just tell me a little briefly what your feeling is. Affordable housing is a huge topic in the county.
It absolutely
cost of
is,
living's
and
going up.
I know that Councilmember Carmine DiPaolo has wanted and scheduled on a very busy day, Saturday, April the 13th. It's the day of our kids fishing tournament the chamber has that's so well attended. At 10 o'clock, an affordable housing workshop. And affordable housing, and I was talking with people this weekend, affordable housing looks different in Sewell's Point than it does out in Indiantown.
Sure does.
Attainable housing. What is attainable for people? That is the question. And that is not an easy answer.
Susan, I like that word so much better, because affordable under the state's value is not affordable in so many respects. Attainable, I like that.
Yeah. Is it attainable by the school teacher? Is it attainable by the landscaper? Is it attainable by somebody that it is harder for them to reach that goal of getting a $300,000 home?
That's right.
Because that seems to be, that's the number that we are moving to. That's kind of a median, $200,000 to $300,000 for a home. Is that attainable for everybody?
Susan Gibbs Thomas, again, she's running for Martin County Commission District 3. I think this is really interesting. This is one of the first candidates we've had in quite some time that has come from Western Martin County. This is supposed to be a commission that's representative of the entire county. So we have a candidate from Western Martin County that can bring in a whole different perspective. But I think it's super important because there's a lot of similarities between Indiantown and a lot of what's happening Jensen Beach, Port Salerno. There truly are. So I think it's a fantastic just a variety of people that we could have on the commission, and I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you throwing your hat in the ring. It was a big decision.
Yeah, it was. Kind of after I stepped out, I'm thinking, what did I do?
But
that's
here you
okay.
are.
I enjoy meeting the people, talking with people, and that's what makes it worthwhile.
Again, you'll want to go to her website, sgt4mcc.info. Susan Gibbs Thomas, number 4, MCC, Martin County Commission. If you remember that, .info, sgt4mcc.info. Next week, I'm going to have Susan Maheel and Alliance for Safe Trains. She's going to be here in the studio. We're going to be talking about, that bright line and all the upgrades that haven't happened. That'll be next week. Susan Gibbs Thomas, today, Martin County Commission District 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jupiter,